learners. Welcome to SWAM online series on database management system. I am Muhammad Bukhari, working as a professor in the Department of Computer Science, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. I am pleased to hear to join me as we explore today about the database design. At the time of database designing, you have to know to whom you give the permission. In the previous lecture, I have discussed about the data security and authentication, authorizations. Today, I will discuss in detail discretionary access control, to whom, what is the meaning of discretionary access control, and definition and explanation. In previous lecture, we have discussed about authorization. You have authorized person can access the sensitive data. Unauthorized person cannot that. What is the advantage and disadvantage of authorizations? Need of authorizations. Types of authorization. There are different types of authorization you have to wear. You have to authorize to delete, update, revoke, modify. Also, it is important. And then authentication. You have to authenticate, verify the users, whether the person, the users, authentic users or not. By that, you have to check the biometric fingerprints, you can say password, by using the users, and the security token you have to give the different types of. So, and then after I have already discussed about the advantage, disadvantage of authentications, need of authentications, and then also I have used the type of authentications in detail in the previous lectures. And then the last is difference between authorization and authentications. So before going to today's agenda, I would like to answer the questions which I have asked in the previous lecture. The first question was, what are the difference between authorization and authentications? Authorization verify the identity of users, ensuring they are who they claim to be through credential like password, biometric. Authorization, on the other hand, determine the access right and privilege granted to authorized users, specifying what action or resources they are allowed to access based on their roles, permissions, or attributes. Authentication receives authorization in the user authentication process. The next question was, explain authorization in detail. The answer is, authorization determines the access right and permissions granted to authenticated users with a system. It specifies what action or resources users are allowed to access based on their roles, groups, attributes. Authorization ensure that users only have access to the information or functionalities necessary for their roles and responsibilities, enforcing security policies and protecting sensitive data from unauthorized access or misuse. The next question was, describe authentication in detail. The answer is, authentication is the process of verifying the identity of users to ensure they are who they claim to be. It involves presenting credentials such as password, biometric data, or security tokens. Authentication mechanism validate these credentials against stored records or external authentication services. Successful authentication grants user access to system resources or services, while failed authentication denies access, protecting against unauthorized access attempt. The agenda of today is to be discussed is discretion, discretionary access control based on granting and revoking privilege. The next topic will discuss about the type of discretionary privileges, specifying privilege and using views, revoking privilege. Let's come to the first discretionary access control. Discretionary access control, in the figure on the screen you can see that there is one owner is there, one side the object is there, and in the middle persons, there are some users or groups of users want to access. So the owner will give the permission, the access by authorizations. He give the some password, whatever he authorized to access the objects. In the figure you have seen, in the scene here, the objects, the users can access the objects, the resources, when the owner can grant a privilege to select or retrieve information. Now, that user only can retrieve information. They cannot manipulate, they cannot update, they cannot delete operation, whatever. If owners give a permission, a users group, to update information, modify, delete, then the group of users can access on the resources and the data whatever available on the object. They can delete also, they can access. But the main thing is that here the authorization can maybe revoke whatever. So but the owner can have access to on the object, but for the users, owner can give a, this is called discretionary access control. I hope you are able to understand. Discretionary it means owner are able to use object, but the user wants to use object, he has to get the permission from the owners. Depending on the permission given by owners, he can apply on the object. Discretionary access control based on granting and revoking privilege. This is a typical method for enforcing discretionary access control in a database, is based on granting and revoking a privilege. It means that granting, you can select, delete, update, modify, you can give a probe, view. The privilege can be given, or depending on that he can revoke also. The main idea is to include statements in the query language that allow a DBA and selected user to grant or revoke privilege. Discrete access control is a mechanism that allows the owner of a resource to control who has access to that resource and what action they can perform on it. It means the owner has a power to give access to the users, the person on that resources. He can what type of action the user can take, it depends on the owner. Access control offers a high degree of flexibility, as the owner can dynamically adjust the access privilege. Dynamically in the online, he can also give a privilege to the users depending on the requirement, and owner can give a dynamically privilege for a resource to suit the need, depending on the need. they can give a privilege dynamically also. Granting too many privilege to wrong people can lead to a security breaches. So, so you have to not give a more privilege to more people. Some people give depending on the role of the, you can say, users, the person administrator. Sometime the database administrator is there, data entry operators, and then only, you can say, system analyst, to whom you give the some privilege. So if you have a more privilege give to more people, there is some security breaches are there. So therefore it is important to carefully consider who is granting discretionary privilege and what actions they are allowed to perform on the resources. Then types of discretionary privilege we have to discuss. There are two types of privilege in the diagrammatic representation: account level and relational level. Database system must provide selective access to each relation in the database on the specific relations. So there are levels of two assigned levels. Operation may also be controlled. Having an account does not necessarily entitle the account holder to all the functionalities provided by the DBMS. So there are two levels of privilege: account level and the relational level. In an account level, this level DBA specifies the particular privilege that each account hold independently of the relation in the database. Relational level, it means on the table level, you can say. This level, DBA can control the privilege to access each individual relation or view in the database. Come to the account level. In the account level, you can give a schema, create schema, create table. At that also you can give a privilege. You know, that person can create a tables, schema, create view privilege is there, alter views privilege, drop, modify, select, and these are the diagrammatic representation. Is there different types of data is interconnected there, and they can, an account level you can give a permission to the persons. So you can do create, you can go modify, alter. So the privilege at the account level apply to the capabilities provided to the account itself and can includes create a schema or create tables privilege to create a schema or database relations by that. Create view privilege you can give on at account level. Alter privilege to a schema change depending on one, you can add, delete, modify, remove some attributes from the relations. So you can add that. And the drop privilege to delete a relation or view. Modify privilege, it means to insert, delete or update tuples. Some tuples we want to update, some tuples we want to delete, some tuples we want to insert more tuples we want to add. That facility privilege you can view. At account level you will get. And the select privilege to retrieve information from the database by using select. So these are the level privilege given at account level. I hope you must be understand. So here the diagrammatic representation of the database is there. Okay. Depending on the analyst, you can say depending on the users may be data analyst account, developer accounts, the different types, data entry accounts, and the administrator accounts. The privilege was given depending on the activity is done by the database administration, has a privilege to all types of that. So the privilege will be given is for account includes create a schema, create table, create view privilege, alter privilege, drop privilege, modify privilege, select privilege to retrieve information. For that, that accounts, the administrator have a privilege to know you can create and you can view, you can alter, drop, and modify and then select also. But data entry operator only can create a schema and then can retrieve information also. Depending on that, the developer also have these on the basis of role of account holder, the privilege will be given that in data analysis account, he has a provision, he has given permission to create a schema, create table, create view, or you can say it will modify, or he can retrieve information from that. So this is the diagrammatic representation. I hope you are able to understand what is database. From database, different users can access as per the privilege given by the organization or some system. Relational. Come to the relational. The second level of privilege applies to the relational level. This includes base relation and virtual. It means view relations. The granting and revoking of privilege generally follows an authorization model for discretionary privilege known to the access matrix model. It means there is some row and column, the two rows. Suppose in matrix Mij, where I is hold on the object J. Okay, I is the subject. M represent the row of a matrix. M represent the subject. It means the users, the account, and the programmer. Programs, whatever there. The column represent the object. It means the relation, maybe records, column, views, and operations. So each position Mij in the matrix represent the types of privilege. It means it is given read, write, update, privilege. That subject subject I means I means the subject. Subject is the maybe users, the account, the program on which that, and it holds on the object J. It means the operation is done on that. It may be relations, it may be records, and then this column, view, and operations. To control the granting and revoking of relation privilege, each relation R in a database is assigned an owner account. That was used when the relation was created as first time. Owner of relation is given all privilege on that relation. On that relation, the owner has given all the privilege. In SQL, database administrator can assign an owner to the whole schema by creating the schema and associating appropriate authorization identifier with that schema using create schema command. The owner account hold and pass privilege on the own relation on the other users by granting privilege on their own. So the owner has given permission to all the privilege on that relation. In SQL, the following types of privilege can be granted on the individual relation R. Select, one is a select, retrieve or retrieve privilege on R. If gives the account retrieval privilege. In SQL, this gives the account the privilege to use the select statement to retrieve tuple from R. Already you know. Modify privilege on R. It gives the account to capability to modify the tuples of the row. If a modify privilege is given on that relation, it means you can modify all the tuples of relation R. In SQL, this privilege is further divided into what you modify. It means you can update, updation, deletion, insertion, anomaly. There are three anomalies you have to certify. It may updation to update, delete, or insert privilege to apply on the corresponding SQL command on relation. Also, both you can insert and update privilege can specify only a certain attributes can be updated on that account. You cannot update the primary key, whatever. So some only privilege given to specify some certain attributes on some particular columns you can update. Then we come to the what is advantage of the account level. The both I have discussed, account level and relational level. There are the advantage of for that simplicity. It was very simple for simplicity. Consistency. It means if the database must be consistent. Ease of maintenance. It is very easier to maintain that accounts and maintain the database for that. Security, also we can secure the data. Security level will be improved. We have to improve. Unauthorized person cannot retrieve information, or they cannot theft your password, users password, or mind handling will not be done on the your record. Suppose in the security also, suppose you have take the delete the record from the storage, okay, but it's not secure. Hijacker will take the deleted record from the hardware where you have where from where you have deleted the record. They are able to retrieve information. So you have to security must be for security. You have to consistency, integrity, and availability must be maintained by the security, and the reduced risk of error. By this approach, the risk of error will be reduced. Scalability, we can scale depending on requirement. Scalability is done, and the compliance we can comply. We can compliance is also a advantage of the account level, and there are same way the disadvantage of account level: lack of granularity, limited flexibility. The flexibility advantage that flexibility our users cannot take undue advantage. Cannot if the owner will give the you can say privilege, then you are able. So the limited flexibility is available on that relations. Difficulty in revoking privilege. So sometime you have given the privilege to the users, but when you are saying, these users are not the activity of a user is not good, you have to revoke the privilege. So it is very difficult to revoking privilege. That's why these are disadvantage for revoking privileges. Increase risk of privilege abuses. Complexity in the compliance auditing. In auditing, it will the complexity will be increased for at the time of auditing. Administrative overheads for the you can say privilege revoking, and that for modifying for that administrative overheads there. So sometimes it is given, it will more time consuming. So it will do more time to maintain the data for at security at the on the point of security. So administrative overheads are there. The disadvantage of account level is the difficulty in meeting least privilege principles. Then the next topic I have is a relational level. So what are the advantage of relational level? It's the same way that the diagrammatically represented there. The reality is there. You can see, you can verify, or the on the relation the privilege there. If you improve flexibility is also is a very important in relational. In the relation, the users you have given the permissions. You can say users and the resource, and that persons and the activity can be done on that that relation. So it is a very flexible. Least privilege principles there. Security is also is a very important. So you have to make a secure. By this privilege, you are able to make a digital data more secure. Compliance, you have to comply the rule and regulations of the organizations so that unauthorized person can not access your data or the relations, whatever. Efficient administration, by that, the advantage that administration will be very efficient, and he can give a permission when depending on the requirement of the users, on the account holders, you give the permission, read, write, whatever, efficiently, and auditability is there. The next is the disadvantage. Everything has a advantage, disadvantages. So here the disadvantage of relations level R. So disadvantage is very complex. The complexity will be improved, will be more complex system. So by in the relation, the first advantage complexity. Next administrative overheads will be there. Next is potential for inconsistencies. The data will become more inconsistency. You have to improve the inconsistency. And difficulty in enforcing list privilege. It is very difficult to enforce the list privilege also. Limited flexibility for users. This is also disadvantage relation is there. Some limited flexibility for users. Users want more for more you can say privilege, but that you can impose a restriction that. So limited flexibility, increase risk of error. Also by that relation, it will increase the risk of error also. Potential for overlapping permissions. Sometimes permission will be overlap. So these are the disadvantage of a relational level. Assign privilege using view. How you will assign privilege using views? The mechanism of view is an important discretionary authorization mechanism in its own rights. For example, I'm taking one example for that. If owner A of a relation R wants other account B to be able to retrieve only some fields of R, then A can create a view V of R that includes only those attributes and then grant select on V to B. The same applies to limiting B to retrieving only certain tuples of R. A view V can be created by defining the views by the meaning of query that selected only those tuples from R that A wants to allow B to access. So in this way, the mechanism views and that you can give. Both can revoke. Then after, if you are given privilege, you can revoking a privilege also. In some cases, it is desirable to grant a privilege user temporarily. Depending on the requirement of the organization and situation, you can temporarily grant a privilege sometime. The owner of a certain relation may wants to grant a select privilege to users for a specific task, then revoke the privilege once the task is completed. For particular task, the owner have given a privilege. Okay, you can select for that. Okay, you can retrieve information. But after completing that work, the permission will be revoked by the owner. Mechanism of revoking a privilege is needed in SQL revoke command. So you have to write revoke, R-E-V-O-K. Revoke command is included in the person of cancelling a privilege. So in database, in SQL, you have to revoke. Propagation of privilege using a grant options. It means whenever owner of A or relation R grants a privilege on R to another account B, privilege can be given to B or without the grant options. That's option. If grant option is given, this means that B can also grant the privilege on the R to other account. So depending on the grant option is there. I am taking one example. You can see on the screen. Take the suppose the B is given a grant option by A, and B then grants the privilege on R to third account C, also by grant option. In this way, privilege on R can propagate to other account without knowing of the owner of R. If the owner A now revoke the privilege granted to B, all the privilege that B propagated based on that privilege should automatically be revoked. So without considering, it will be revoked by, if it will revoke, it will revoke to all the accounts. So these are propagation privilege using grant. I am taking one example. Suppose that DBA creates 4 accounts. Account A1, A2, A3 and A4. 4 account DBA has created. And DBA wants only A1 to be able to create database creation. Not all account holder A1, A2, A3, A4 maybe they can create, but the DBA wants to know A1 can create a relation only. Then DBA must issue a following grant command. What will do? In the right, grant create to A1 only. It will grant privilege to A1 only. It means he can only A1 can create. If you want to give a privilege to A2, you have to write grant create to you can say A2 also. In SQL, some effects can be accomplished by having a DBA issues a create schema command also. Create a schema, example, authorization A1. Okay, so you can use that create a schema also. User account A1 can create table under the schema called example. Suppose A1 create a two base relation, employee and department. Suppose he created by given privilege by the DBA, he can create a two relation, employee and the department. A1 is then owner of these two relation, and hence all the relation privilege on each of them. Suppose A1 wants to grant A2 the privilege to insert or delete tuples in both of these relations. Relation or employee on the department. He want give a grant to A2. But A1 does not want A2 to be able to propagate this privilege in addition to account. But A1 want to know, if I'll give a privilege but he will not propagate. So what you have to write a command? Grant insert comma delete. You can insert delete on employee department to A2 only. You have to give insert or delete on employee table or department table to A. It means the account holder A2 can insert or delete on the both the table, employee table and the department table. He can, in employee table, he can insert the tuples or he can delete the tuple also. Same way, A2 can, in the table department, can insert a tuples or delete a tuples. In this way, we can give the grant. I've given you some thought-provoking questions on the topics which I have discussed today. The answer of all these questions will not only reinforce understanding but also track your progress. So these are the questions. I hope you enjoyed this exploration. I have tried to explain the discussion and about the privilege given to the users, about to how to update, delete, select, to create a schema to view. I hope you enjoyed my exploration. Thank you for your active participations, and we eagerly anticipate your presence in our upcoming lectures. Wish you a wonderful day ahead.